Kazuya Kagami has a white, snowy obi belonging to his late mom. Its Sakura scent comforts him at all times. As Kazuya prepares to leave, he finds a wig on the floor and attempts to avoid it but is grabbed by the wig. Kazuya is saved from the wig by an unknown force, and Kazuya hears a voice in his head helping him. The wig tackles Kazuya off the roof of the building. Kazuya falls but is saved by the obi, who creates a cushion and manifests herself in human form. Kazuya receives a familiar greeting from Kiriha, but Kazuya doesn't remember her. The Amasoga's host reveals itself and continues their attack on Kazuya. She saves Kazuya from the Amasogi and destroys it. As Kazuya tends to the unconscious host, Kiriha explains the concept of Amasogi. Kazuya blushes at the thought of a girl liking him, but Kiriha tells him the host is a male cross-dressing as a female. Kiriha disappears as a teacher comes by to check on the two. Kazuya returns home and greets his sister before going upstairs to his room. Kazuya thinks about what has happened and takes a nap. Kazuya awakes to find Kiriha sleeping with him under his sheets and screams. Kasumi rushes upstairs to check on Kazuya, who quickly rolls Kiriha up in his blanket and hides her. Kasumi reaches Kazuya's room, and Kazuya insists that nothing happened, prompting his sister to leave. Kiriha punishes Kazuya for tossing her around and introduces herself to Kazuya as his master. The next morning, Kazuya rushes to class only to be told he is late by his teacher. Chisato violently punishes Kazuya for being late as Shiru and Osamu watch. Kazuya blames Kiriha for him being late to school. Earlier that morning, after being woken by Kiriha, Kazuya finds that he is running late and that Kiriha has destroyed his alarm clock. Kazuya rushed out to school, but Kiriha insisted on going with him. Kazuya tricks Kiriha into going into her obi form, believing Kazuya would carry her that way, but Kazuya leaves her tied up in a box and goes to school by himself. While having lunch with Shiru and Osamu talk about rumors of a ghost sighting, and Shiru fantasizes about using the opportunity to get close to a girl. Chisato smacks them all on the head as punishment for Shiru's thoughts, reminding them of their work. Kazuya realizes he has not completed his work and begs Osamu for help, but is stopped by Chisato, who drags him to the library to oversee him personally. Kazuya works with Chisato in the library, and they reminisce about when they studied together as children. Chisato offers to go over to Kazuya's house to help him study, but Kazuya declines, not wanting Chisato to encounter Kiriha. Kazuya finishes up his work and goes to take a book out while Chisato leaves. Chisato finds herself unable to open the library door to leave. As Kazuya is taking out books, Kiriha appears, and Kazuya screams as she beats his face to a pulp. Chisato goes to check on Kazuya and informs him that she is unable to open the door. The two find themselves locked in the library and unable to break out with brute force. Kiriha shows herself to the two, and Kazuya quickly drags her away to talk in private. After several more beatings, Kiriha explains Amasogi to Kazuya and introduces herself to Chisato, explaining the situation to her as well. Kiriha gives the both of them Netsuke to detect Amasogi. The group searches for the Amasogi, but finds that the Netsuke are responding to numerous books within the library. Kiriha attempts to force her way out with her spiral weave. The area transforms into a large hall consisting entirely of books, revealing the entire library to be the Amasogi. Kiriha is attacked by books, and a large book golem appears and begins to chase them. Kiriha realizes that Chisato is the Amasoga's host and has Kazuya recount their previous actions in the library. Realizing Kazuya's rejection of Chisato's study offer was the trigger for the Amasogi, Kazuya accepts Chisato's offer, and the library returns to normal. Outside the library, Kokayu observes the entire event. Chisato arrives at the house to study, opening his room to find him sleeping with Kiriha. Chisato hits Kazuya and reminds him that she came to help him study. Chisato gives pudding to Kiriha and apologizes for creating an Amasogi. Kiriha tells Chisato not to blame herself and explains the causes from Malison, the distortions in reality. It exists everywhere and could shape the world if it is powerful enough. Normally it is harmless in normal density, but what happened showed there are high levels of density unusually gathering in this area. She blames the local god overseeing this area, Kukuri. Shiru is stopped by Kokayu on the streets and asked about Kazuya. Shiru offers to bring Kokayu to Kazuya for a price. In a flashback, Kukuri and Kiriha seal Kazuya's memories at the Hakusen shrine. Kiriha agrees, despite losing her powers and reverting to a normal obi. In present time, Kazuaki checks on his son before he heads out, telling Kazuya he will be home early for dinner. At school, Shiru greets Kazuya with a dropkick, blaming him for his earlier troubles. A flashback of the day before explains Shiru bringing Kokayu to a restaurant to eat and offering to pay for the food. Kokayu orders a lot of food for herself and finishes it all as the employee and customers cheer her on. Kokayu leaves with a parting gift from the restaurant, while Shiru is forced to stay and pay the bill. In the present, Shiru tells Kazuya that he lost all his money and is now in debt to Osamu. Kazuya has no idea who the woman looking for him could be. Atop the school building, Kokayu listens to them and remembers her conversation with Kikuri from earlier. Kikuri berates Kokayu for losing track of her objective. Kokayu explains that the food was much better than what she usually eats at the shrine, casually blaming the shrine's lack of resources and recognition. Kikuri tells Kokayu to hurry to bring Kazuya to her without making a commotion, and not bringing Kiriha along. In the present, Kokayu's stomach growls. Shiru challenges Kazuya to arm wrestling for Kazuya's lunch, prepared by his sister. The other classmates begin to scream as they find that their lunches are gone. Kazuya confronts Kiriha about the missing lunches and is hit in the face. Kokayu bursts through the classroom door with stolen lunches, demanding Kazuya's whereabouts. Shiru recognizes Kokayu from earlier, but Kokayu does not remember him. Kokayu confronts Kazuya and tells him to follow her. Kiriha intervenes, and the two argue. The two decide to settle things via arm wrestling in order to decide if Kiriha is allowed to come along. Atop the school roof, Kiriha and Kokayu face off in arm wrestling, and Kiriha easily tosses Kokayu and wins. A teacher arrives to see what they are doing, but Kiriha, Kazuya, Kokayu, and Chisato are gone, leaving the rest of the students behind. The group walks up to the Hakusen shrine, Kazuya remembering the path is familiar despite having no memories of venturing there. At the shrine, the group meets Kukuri. Kokayu introduces the group to Kukuri. Kiriha confronts Kukuri in silence about the seal on Kazuya's memories weakening. Kiriha suggests that she reapply the seal immediately, but Kukuri refuses, offering up an alternate solution. Kukuri tells Kazuya that he will become the region's exorcist, but Kiriha rejects the idea. Kukuri tells Kazuya that he is responsible for recent occurrences of Amasogi. Kiriha tries to take Kazuya and run away, but they are locked in by a barrier. Kokayu carries Chisato into the air, and Kukuri prepares to battle Kiriha and Kazuya. Kiriha tries to fly her and Kazuya away during the battle, but the barrier is in the way. Kiriha tried to hit Kukuri with sledgehammer weave, but Kiriha is knocked down, and Kukuri uses Minazuchi, engulfing them in a large mass of water, while Kokayu and Chisato watch from a safe distance. Kiriha protects herself and Kazuya from the attack by being weakened and shrunk. Kukuri launches another attack, and Kiriha is unable to protect both of them. Kazuya receives a dream of his mother giving him advice on what to do, telling him to protect Kiriha. Kazuya awakens to find Kiriha giving him air from mouth to mouth. The two resurface, and Kazuya commands Kiriha to use her true name in order to fight. Kukuri launches various attacks as Kazuya finds it difficult to get a grasp on Kiriha's ability. Kukuri uses Suzuro Mizachi, which Kazuya is able to counter using a watershed weave. Kazuya goes in to finish with a spiral weave, which manages to destroy Kukuri's ice barrier. After the barrier is destroyed, Kazuya finds Kiriha in the hands of Kukuri with an ice spear up to her neck. Kazuya complies with Kukuri's demands and agrees to become an exorcist. The battle comes to a conclusion, and Kukuri's Akuju falls off, causing her to change into a childlike state. Kiriha mocks and bullies Kukuri in her new form. Kukuri finishes explaining that the battle was simply a ruse to get Kazuya to Kiriha and become an exorcist. After that, Kazuya, Kiriha, and Chisato leave the shrine, with Chisato later parting ways as Kazuya carries Kiriha home. Kiriha has a flashback to just before they left the shrine about a private conversation she had with Kukuri about Kazuya. Kukuri and Kokayu sit and converse in their ruined shrine. The next day, Kiriha tells Kazuya that they will begin his training. While training, Kiriha grows frustrated with Kazuya's physical ineptitude and lack of skill, failing to perform basic weaves. As they go to bath, Kiriha explains the weaknesses and mortality of Tsugumomo. Meanwhile, Kukuri finds that she and Kokayu lack the funds to have their shrine repaired. The carpentry Tsukimigami are unable to work without pay, but they leave some cloth to cover the holes. At Kazuya's home, Kazuya fails to weave properly, prompting Kiriha to punish him and demonstrate the correct method. At the Hakusen shrine, Kukuri and Kokayu stand outside in the rain, lamenting their destroyed home while Kokayu decides their next home. The next day, Kiriha and Kazuya train as Chisato, Kukuri, and Kokayu watch. Kukuri wonders why they are performing such basic training, to which Kiriha explains that Kazuya's previous victory and display of skill were merely a fluke. Kukuri panics, regretting her decision, and heads to their new home, seeing that there is nothing they can do about it. The group follows Kukuri and Kokayu to their new home to find them reciting in a playground as Kiriha laughs. Kukuri reads out the curse forecast, and tells them that there should be no curse-related problems. In the school, Kazuya meets with the student council president, Tadeka, who introduces himself as the owner of the previous hair Amasogi. Tadeka informs them of a problem likely caused by an Amasogi. On the way to the location of the problem, they run into Osamu. They find the club room missing, and Kiriha checks for the presence of an Amasogi using her Hazakura, which responds. Back at Kukuri's new shrine, Kokayu tells Kukuri that their curse forecast is 2 months out of date. The group heads back to find themselves stopped by a wall. Nakajima introduces himself, demanding that Tadeka officialize the tabletop RPG club, which Tadeka refuses. Nakajima summons a minotaur using his sketchbook, and the group runs away. The group finds themselves trapped by a wall and heads into the classroom, which leads to a dead end. Kiriha tells Kazuya they need to face the monster, and Kazuya realizes the monster is drawing, meaning it can be erased. Nakajima and the minotaur enter the room, where the minotaur is sprayed with water by Osamu and Tadeka to no effect. Kazuya uses the distraction to use a fire extinguisher on the minotaur, erasing its arm. The group retreats back into the hallway and erases the wall that blocked them, only to find another wall behind it and their fire extinguisher running out. Nakajima corners them, having redrawn the minotaur's arm. Kazuya uses Kiriha and makes a rush to a nearby fire extinguisher, grabbing it and erasing the monster entirely. Nakajima is confronted, and Osamu is informed about the Amasogi. Kiriha gives Nakajima the sketchbook for him to destroy in order to avoid the curse backlash. Nakajima destroys the book but reveals he had a piece of paper hidden, summoning another minotaur. Osamu reveals that he had switched their sketchbooks, and he is still the Amasogi. Osamu summons a flare dragon and destroys Nakajima's minotaur. The fire from the dragon causes the fire alarm to go off. The following days, Hiroshi confesses his love for Chisato on the school rooftop as Kiriha and Kazuya watch in secret. Chisato rejects Hiroshi, stating she already likes someone, leaving Hiroshi upset. Chisato's love for someone surprises Kazuya, and Kiriha sighs at Kazuya's ignorance. Chisato helps Kazuya study in his room. Kazuya confronts Chisato about who she likes, and Chisato refuses to tell. Kiriha looks through Chisato's bag for pudding but finds a doll instead, as Chisato grows increasingly embarrassed. Kazuya asks what the doll is, and Chisato mellows down, telling them it is nothing. Hiroshi expresses his frustration over getting rejected as he plays computer games. While playing video games, he manifests as an Amasogi. Kazuya arrives at school the next day to find all the students interacting as couples. Kazuya arrives in his classroom to find all his classmates interacting as couples with a dialogue prompt. Shiru, who has a dialogue interaction with Misako, greets Kazuya and tells him of the great opportunity they have received from the dialogue system. As Kazuya sits down for class, Kiriha comes to the conclusion and explains that the dialogue system running throughout the school is caused by a gal game Amasogi. Kazuya heads out to search for the Amasogi, but finds Chisato being romanced by Hiroshi. Kazuya greets Chisato, who responds distantly. Kazuya confronts Hiroshi about what he has done to Chisato, but Chisato slaps Kazuya. Chisato and Hiroshi then leave, with Hiroshi proclaiming his superior skills at playing Pure Heart. Kazuya and Kiriha realize that Hiroshi is the host of the Amasogi and chase after him. Hiroshi calls upon his groupies to defend him from Kazuya. Kazuya meets with Osamu, explaining the situation and asking for advice. Osamu explains the workings of the Pure Heat dialogue system, telling Kazuya that his best chance to win Chisato back is to use the custom input dialogue option. Kazuya finds Chisato and enters custom dialogue input, asking her to help him study and increasing Chisato's affection for Kazuya. While studying in class, she compliments Chisato's hands to no effect. After that they have lunch together, with Osamu complimenting Chisato for having her stay. Kazuya compliments Chisato's lunch-making skills and abilities as a household wife, increasing her affection for Kazuya. Chisato asks Kazuya about Kiriha's whereabouts, though no dialogue window appears. Osamu realizes the situation is a free input conversation event. Kazuya answering carelessly, Kazuya tells Chisato that she is napping in her gym clothes. Chisato's affection decreases, and she gets angry. Osamu explains the situation, and Kazuya attempts to answer carefully, but fails. Osamu, Kazuya, and Kiriha meet and discuss the situation. Osamu explains that the only choice left for Kazuya is to exploit an event bug, which results in him maximizing his points. Hiroshi meets Chisato beneath the school's sakura tree and prepares to confess his love. Kazuya interrupts them. Hiroshi is already aware of the exploit but unconvinced he can pull it off. Kazuya brings out a pair of dolls, one of which is Chisato's from earlier, and asks her to play house with him. Chisato remembers that when she and Kazuya were younger, they would play house together, with Chisato playing the mother doll and Kazuya the father doll. Kazuya grew tired of playing as the other kids ridiculed him and refused to. Chisato gave the father doll to Kazuya to keep so that they could play again in the future. Chisato accepts Kazuya's proposal, with Kazuya winning over Chisato and Hiroshi crying as he runs away. In the park, Kiriha bullies Kukuri for giving them incorrect information on the curse forecast, and Kazuya tries to calm her down. Kokayu arrives to inform Kukuri that she has to leave for work, explaining to Kazuya that she has taken up several part-time jobs to pay for their expenses. Kokayu leaves, and Kukuri pushes Kiriha off of her. Kukuri wears her Akujo mask and uses Minazachi to no effect. Kiriha continues grappling with Kukuri. Kazuya tells Kiriha to stop, or else she will not get pudding. Kiriha releases Kukuri, and Kazuya goes off to buy pudding. Kiriha engages in a chat with Kukuri. Kiriha asked about Kukuri's depleted strength. Kukuri tells Kiriha that she cannot tell her yet, and Kiriha assumes it involves her reasoning for making Kazuya an exorcist. Kiriha threatens Kukuri into telling her what Kukuri indulges in, but tells her to wait after completing their dam made of sand. Kids warn the two to watch out as a soccer ball slams into the dam, covering them both in mud. The two kids mock the pair for being covered in mud. Kiriha chases after the two kids as Kukuri laments her dam. Kazuya returns, confused by the situation. At the Kagami household, Kukuri and Kiriha goes for the bath. After that, Kukuri thanks Kazuya and bids farewell before returning to the park. Next morning, Kazuya is shocked that his family knows all about Kiriha. Kasumi already knows the day after she saw him in bed with her, while Kazuaki goes a long way back. When he was dating Mom, Kiriha often come in between them and abused him. Kiriha orders Kazuaki to get her some pudding, which he obediently does. Kiriha enjoys her pudding, and Kazuya realizes that he forgot to give Kukuri her share. Kazuya walked to deliver the pudding. The two get to the park. They discover that Kukuri's shrine has been demolished. Kukuri runs crying towards Kiriha, lamenting her shrine. Kokayu informs them that the structure was deemed dangerous as a result of a kid injuring themselves on it. Kiriha recalls it being one of the kids she chased earlier. Kukuri cries about having nowhere to sleep, but Kiriha tells her that she will make arrangements. Back at the Kagami house, Kazuya hears Kasumi tell him again that they can't have pets, but Kazuya informs her that they are people. Kazuya negotiated with his father to let the two stay. Kazuaki told them about the difficulties of caring for two more residents, while Kasumi expressed her concern about having Kokayu in the same house as Kazuya. Kiriha asked Kazuaki if he was sure that they could not let them stay, which he affirms. Kiriha began to recite a love poem, and Kazuaki punched Kiriha's speech bubble, agreeing to let the two of them stay. Kukuri sets up their room as the new Hakusen shrine. Kiriha expresses her gratitude for being allowed to stay as she enjoys some Mizuyaka. Kiriha tells her to finish quickly, as they have engagements. Kukuri protests, as Kiriha tries to drag her to go borrow money for curse forecast. Kiriha, Kukuri, and Kazuya arrive at the Kanara shrine, and Kiriha has Kukuri call Taguri. The three are sucked into the shrine, where Taguri greets them. Taguri correctly assumes that Kukuri has returned to borrow money, and Kukuri apologizes for not repaying her previous debts. Kazuya and his group were able to obtain 175,000 yen at the expense of Kukuri and Kiriha. Taguri bids them farewell, welcoming them to come again, which they refuse. At school, Kazuya is shocked to find Shiru with a group of girls fawning over him. Shiru greets them as their other classmates question how he became so popular despite being unpopular. Chisato warns Shiru for being inappropriate, causing his groupies to insult her. Osamu determines Shiru's increase in popularity to be unnatural. Kiriha agrees, coming outside of Kazuya's backpack and stating it to be Amasoga's doing. Kiriha recalls the curse forecast given to him earlier, and tells Kazuya to perform his job as an exorcist. Shiru plays his groupies as Kazuya confronts him about his use of an Amasogi. Shiru panics and denies Kazuya's claim as their male classmates overhear Kazuya's mention of a tool to make themselves popular. Their classmates are overcome with the desire to acquire Shiru's perfume and charge towards him. Kazuya uses Kiriha to knock his classmates away. The classmate gets right back up, and Kiriha explains that their feelings resonating with the Amasogi are affecting them as well. Kazuya uses Kiriha to grab Shiru as Chisato and Osamu retreat. The group escape to another classroom to close themselves in. Their classmates begin to break through the windows to get to them, forcing Kazuya to fend them off. Atop the school rooftop, Kazuya has Shiru explain the situation. Shiru explains that the previous day he asked Misako out but was rejected. Shiru was enraged that his cologne failed after reading about it in a magazine. Just as Shiru was about to leave the bottle, it began whispering at him to use it again. Kiriha warns Chisato about getting closer to avoid affecting them. Kazuya explains that Shiru needs to destroy it himself. The next day, Tadedeka calls for Kazuya, Chisato, and Osamu. When they enter his room, his wig slips off. Kiriha explains that Amasogi goes peacefully if it fulfills its desire, or is destroyed by its host, but becomes malice and atonement when destroyed by another. The atonement depends on the nature of the Amasogi. Tadedeka explains the case at hand. It seems girls from a former first-year class have been harassed by a girl named Aiko who wants something. But Aiko has been dead for 2 years via suicide. They go around to search for clues that include Nanako from the newspaper club, who is also on this case, as well as a fan club. They catch Nanako trying to interview Kasuke, an ex-member of the fan club. Suddenly, Kasuke is freaked out by the appearance of Aiko, who is demanding a letter. Kazuya tries to intercept, but Aiko runs away. Kiriha feels something strange about this Amasogi. Kasuke explains how a group of girls formed a fan club over a cute boy they liked. But that guy took an interest in Nanako, and jealousy built up. Kasuke couldn't take it and left, and she thinks subsequently that her suicide was due to being bullied by the group's leader, Muratsuki. Digging further into this, they discover Aiko has a sister who is registered at this school. That girl is Nanako. After her parents divorced, she changed her surname. Kazuya and Kiriha intercept the ghost of Aiko before it does something terrible to Muratsuki. Kazuya then calls out Nanako, who is the brains behind this. She reveals that when she touched her sister's hair, it turned into hers, and she wanted to use this chance to find out why she killed herself. Muratsuki explains that Nanako tried to distance herself from the boy so as not to hurt their feelings, but they continued tormenting her. The day she jumped off the building, Muratsuki saw a suicide note left behind. She didn't tell anyone for fear that it contained their names. She never reads it but brings it to them. Nanako reads Aiko's note, which is addressed to her. Aside from the boy she likes, it seems she has a malison growing on her chest. It was trying to make Aiko kill her sister. Nanako couldn't take it anymore and killed herself. Nanako goes into grief upon learning the truth. She blames herself for the one who should have been dead. Kiriha realizes the Amasogi's goal is to make Nanako read the letter so it can kill her with such feeling. The Amasogi attack, prompting Kazuya and Kiriha to defend themselves. Kazuya is knocked away as Kiriha explains the growth was recreated when Nanako's Amasogi formed. Kiriha orders Kazuya to run, but Kazuya insists it is his responsibility to solve it. Kazuya attacks with a hammer weave to no avail. The two are able to fend off an attack. Kiriha states they have no choice but to destroy it themselves. Kiriha relays orders for Kazuya's attacks and Kazuya destroys the Amasogi with a spiral weave. Nanako cries over her sister, but Kiriha tells that her sister was able to suppress her negative feelings in order to protect her. Kiriha tells Nanako that Aiko conquered her feelings and that Nanako should not wish for her own death and let her sister die in vain, which Nanako accepts. Kiriha turns to Kazuya and embarrassingly compliments him before chastising for disobeying her. At the student council office, Tadedeka goes over the details of Nanako's Amasogi with Osamu, Chisato, Kiriha, and Kazuya. Chisato and Kazuya state their relief that no curse backlash. Nanako enters the room and, writing on a small white board, tells them that she has lost her voice. The group is surprised by the curse backlash, but Kiriha tells them it does not always occur immediately. Kazuya apologizes to Nanako, but Nanako tells Kazuya it is her own responsibility, which Kiriha agrees with. Kiriha leaves, and Nanako assures Kazuya that Kiriha is correct. Kazuya prepares to go home, telling Kiriha she was too harsh on Nanako, but Kiriha tells him to be silent. Kazuya is called out by Sunao, who punches him in the face. Sunao continues attacking Kazuya, and he is defended by Kiriha. Sunao is able to grab Kiriha away and punch Kazuya again, calling him a pathetic excuse for an exorcist. Kiriha attacks with an obai punch from behind but is intercepted by Kotsu, who cuts her obai. Sunao chastises Kotsu for interfering and calls him back into his weapon form. Kiriha questions if Sunao is possessed by her Tsukimagami, which Sunao denies. Sunao introduces herself and states her reason for attacking Kazuya, telling him he is not fit to be Kanaka's replacement. Kazuya is confused, and his head begins to hurt when trying to remember his mother. Kiriha remembers Sunao, and the two leave, telling Kiriha and Kazuya to follow them to the land god. At Kazuya's house, Kukuri makes a grand entrance for the four of them, and Kiriha grapples with her for it. Sunao and Kotsu are shocked by how Kiriha treats a god. Previously, Sunao and Kotsu had witnessed Kazuya's fight with the Kamihane, believing Kazuya to be unfit to wield Kanaka's weapon. The two went to Kukuri, who told them that Kanaka had passed away. Sunao requested to test Kazuya's strength as an exorcist. Kukuri accepted and told them how much Kazuya had progressed. Sunao thanks Kukuri for accepting her request, though Kiriha is angry and threatens her. Sunao states that she believes Kazuya is unfit to be the region's exorcist and challenges him to a duel to decide Kamoka's exorcist. In the past, the funeral of Sue Sumeragi was held. Hanoka denies Sunao's request for a Tsukimagami in order to avenge her brothers. Hanoka berates Sunao for trying to avenge Sue despite not being an exorcist and defeat an enemy, which Sue himself could not. Hanoka reminds Sunao that Sue became an exorcist so she could live peacefully, but Sunao is already gone. Kotsu cries over a photo of his deceased owner, blaming himself for being unable to defend Sue. Sunao punches Kotsu in the face and announces that she will use him. Sunao carries Kotsu, running to find the aberration that killed her brother. Sunao blames Kotsu for being too weak to defend Sue, but states she will use him regardless. Kotsu senses that the aberration may have escaped to Kamioka. The two find Kanaka easily disposing of Sue's killer while Kiriha complains about being drenched in blood. Sunao attacks Kanaka for taking away her chance at revenge but is knocked unconscious. Sunao awakes to Kanaka greeting her. Kanaka tells Kiriha to apologize, but she refuses. Sunao tells Kanaka about what happened, and Kiriha is unimpressed while Kanaka is brought to tears. Sunao announces that since she killed her brother's killer, Kanaka is now the target of her vengeance. Kanaka accepts being her nemesis, and the two leave. After Sunao dueled Kanaka many times with no success, she eventually enrolled at the Tsuzura Temple to train, only to find Kanaka is gone once her training was complete. Sunao tells Kazuya that he is not fit to be Kanaka's replacement. Sunao demands Kazuya accept her challenge, which Kiriha does, but Kazuya remains silent. At the Hakusen Shrine, Kazuya and Sunao connect themselves to Kukuri's water dolls. Hyukurus goes over the winning conditions. Sunao thinks about Kazuya being unworthy of being Kanaka's successor, while Kazuya thinks about his responsibility for attracting curses and how Sunao treats Kotsu as a tool. The duel begins with Kazuya showing off a new weave technique, the doll weave. Sunao destroys it, leaving Kazuya the opportunity to grab her blade. Sunao throws Kazuya away, and Kazuya prepares another doll to weave. Sunao hits it with an air slash, but he is countered by a jab from the doll, damaging her. Hanoka creates a miniature avatar of herself on top of Kukuri to watch the fight, and the two of them discuss the battle. Hanoka is impressed by Kazuya's skill despite hearing about his lack of skill from Sunao. Sunao and Kazuya continue to fight, reanalyzing their situations. Kazuya weaves a tangle ball, which Kotsu tells Sunao to retreat from, but she refuses. Kazuya weaves it into a hammer weave and knocks Sunao away. Hanoka is surprised at how one-sided the fight is and believes that Sunao is too confident, as Sunao expresses cockiness. Kazuya creates a tangle ball into a spiral weave, which is blocked by Sunao using Kotsu's hilt. Sunao launches an air slash, which Kazuya blocks, and the two continue fighting as Kukuri smugly tells Hanoka that her exorcist is winning. Sunao launches an air slash. Kazuya blocks the attack and counters, but this is his second consecutive air slash. Kazuya tries to retreat, but Sunao's attack reaches out of its expected range. Kazuya blocks it, and he continues retreating into the shrubbery. From the bushes, Kazuya launches a rock at Sunao with a crossbow weave. Sunao is able to block the attack and destroy his weave, forcing Kazuya to retreat. Sunao damages the original Kiriha, and Kazuya loses a duplicate. Sunao attacks, knocking them down, and goes in for a final strike but is blocked by Kazuya's hand weave, which forms the watershed. Kazuya counterattacks, knocking Sunao away and damaging her. Kazuya continues his attacks as Sunao retreats while attacking. Kotsu warns Sunao about conserving her energy, but Sunao ignores him. The battle has come to a standstill as the combatants plan their next move. Hanoka states the battle is over, with Kazuya being able to recover the more they stall. Kukuri questions what secret technique Sunao used to pass her test, but Hanoka states what she used is only viable at close range. Hanoka explains that Sunao will not close the distance between the two, but Kukuri thinks otherwise. Kazuya tells Kiriha he is not willing to play it safe to ensure victory, instead wanting to beat Sunao at her full strength to prove that Tsugumomo are more than just tools. Kiriha agrees, and Kazuya charges at Sunao. Sunao prepares to face him as Hanoka monologues internally about Kotsu's ability to build up spiritual energy within himself in order for Sunao to use her secret technique, Hibikiri. Hikari monologues internally about possession, and its variation, Ascension. Kazuya activates Ascension as Sunao unleashes her secret technique. Kazuya uses a muscle-enhancing weave and parries Sunao's attacks. The two clash as Hanoka expresses her surprise at Kazuya using Ascension. Hikari believes them to be even, but Hanoka states otherwise. Kazuya catches Kotsu, causing his handle to break. Now defenseless, Kazuya finishes Sunao off with a coiling snake. Sunao's water doll shatters, and Kikari announces Kazuya as the victor. Exhausted, Kazuya exits Ascension, and Kiriha manifests human form, sapping Kazuya on the buttocks. Hikari congratulates Kazuya as Sunao worriedly picks up Kotsu's blade. Hanoka explains how Kotsu was damaged, though the blade was intact, and tells Sunao to be grateful as Kazuya had the opportunity to destroy Kotsu. Sunao accepts and bows her head to the Kamioka residence as she and Hanoka leave. Kazuya is surprised, as he believed Sunao thought of Tsukimagami as nothing but tools. Kiriha states that no one who truly believes that could be so powerful. Thank you for watching till the end, and please don't forget to subscribe.